everyone, it is E. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, it's going to be the next up in our Disney Channel original movie review series, and we're going to be covering movie trilogies. So let's jump into it.
Let's watch a Disney Channel movie. Let's watch a Disney Channel movie.
Rather than going with the movie that inspired the fan art first, I'm going to go in chronological order, I guess. And the first Disney Channel original movie trilogy series was Zenon, Girl of the 21st Century. I'll be honest, I'm not sure why it got 3 movies, but let's just jump into our review of the first one. So honestly, it had a unique and exciting plot, especially for a Disney Channel original movie. But obviously, the movie has not aged very well for several reasons. So for one thing, their concept of what the future would look like, which was just 50 years into the future at that point in time, is in many ways a little over-optimistic and in many other ways kind of behind. So for example, they live in a space station, like there's a whole, basically maybe like a country's worth of people living on a space station. I find that to be unrealistic. I mean, the movie takes place in like 2054, which is only like 24 years from now. I just don't think that by the time I'm in my 40s that people are going to be living in space permanently, but I could be surprised. But in other ways, the movie, like the view of the future is behind, like the computer graphics and, you know, the old school monitors and stuff like that is kind of like, you thought people would be living in space, but you thought that our computers were still going to be like 3 feet deep. It's funny what people in the past think of what the future is going to be like. I think Yogi Berra said the future isn't what it used to be, and that's very true. Some of the dialogue is really cheesy sounding with their futuristic slang, and this is consistent throughout all the movies. They say stuff like Vega Omega and Zetus Lapidus and this and that major. And their fashion is interesting. It's funny because in this movie, Xenon gets in trouble and has to go live on Earth, and while she's on Earth, she discovers that the company that basically sponsors their space station is trying to sabotage it. And if I'm remembering right, the way that they're sabotaging the space station, like Loki's gonna probably murder most of the people who live on it. I mean, I may be misremembering because I watched this movie like way early on in my DCOM reviewing phase, but I'm pretty sure that like the consequences would be pretty dire if the company went through with its plan. But while Xenon's on Earth, basically all of the kids that she's interacting with in the year 2054 basically dress the same way that kids did in the early 2000s. So it's like, in their projection of the future, only people who live in space are going to be wearing like space-agey clothes. Honestly, a lot of the CG in the movie is not that bad. So like the space station, obviously they didn't build an entire space station to film a DCOM. They use CG for it, and it's really not that bad, but the green screen work is kind of terrible. There are some small details in the movie that are really good, which are not present in subsequent Xenon movies, like Xenon having to adjust to Earth's gravity was, you know, that's an interesting detail, and they did a lot to add to the world building. I would say it's a pretty decent DCOM. The story gets a 4 out of 5, the acting gets a 3 out of 5. The lesson, I'm gonna omit that because at the time I watched it, I couldn't figure out what the lesson of the story was supposed to be. I guess I could give it a 0 out of 5, but if it wasn't trying to make a point, then I can't fault it on that. The enjoyability gets a 4 out of 5. Alright, next up is Zenon 2, the sequel. This movie should have been really exciting, but it felt slow and sort of random. So basically, Zenon receives an alien transmission and she decides to like pursue it because she wants to meet aliens, I guess. But the climax when she finally meets the aliens is really lame. Protozoa, who is in the first movie as well, is like this galactic pop star. And he is like as iconic as ever, and he's definitely a highlight of the movie. Like his whole goal in this movie is to meet aliens because he thinks it'll boost his career. It's very funny. The friendship between Margie and Zenon could have been better developed. So Margie, I guess like I forgot her, but she was kind of like the mean girl bully on Earth in the first movie who was trying to steal Xenon's man, who Xenon's not even with in this movie, so it's irrelevant anyway. But her dad like works for the military, and the military is taking over the space station, and so Margie goes to the space station to live, I guess, and Xenon is supposed to help her fit in. but she just treats Xenon like garbage the whole movie, and at the end, suddenly they're friends. And it's like their relationship wasn't developed throughout the movie, it was just like they had a sudden change of heart at the end, so it didn't really make a ton of sense. The pacing of the movie is just strange. Overall, it feels like there's a lot going on in the movie, but at the same time, like nothing is happening at all. I don't know. The movie, it's odd. I don't think I would recommend the Xenon series at all, honestly, because each movie like improves on certain things from the previous movie, but like also fails in so many ways. The story gets a 3 out of 5. The acting gets a 3 out of 5. The lesson gets a 2 out of 5 because this one actually has a lesson. I think it's trust your gut, but I don't know. And the enjoyability gets a 2 out of 5. So obviously Xenon 2, the sequel, wasn't that great. Let's just go ahead and move on to Z3 so we can get done talking about these movies. The previous 2 movies used CG kind of minimally, but Xenon Z3 like used it so much, and it was so bad. Like the effects in this movie are so bad, and it's funny because this one came out last, so you would think they would have been able to improve on the CG, but it's like maybe their budget got lesser and lesser with each movie, because like somehow the CG is even worse, which I don't give a CG rating, and I try not to really factor that into the rating of these movies. Like maybe if it's super bad, it'll detract from the enjoyability, because it's not fair to rate these movies based on their CG, because for one thing, a lot of these movies don't have CG. These movies inherently aren't going to have great CG because they're low budget, made for TV movies, and also some movies came out in the late 1990s while other movies came out in 2019, so it's not fair to compare them on that. But I'm saying the CG in this is bad and distracting. Also, in the second movie, they recast Nebula. She was originally played by Raven-Symoné. In the second movie, she's played by someone else. Well, they brought Raven-Symoné back for Z3. And honestly, I don't know why they bothered to include her in the movie at all, because basically Raven just appears as like a cameo. Like she's not really involved in the plot. She just talks to Xenon on the phone. So, like, if they couldn't really get Raven to do the whole movie, could they not have gotten the girl who played her in the sequel to actually come back and literally, like, just play Nebula in the movie? Because Nebula's in the movie, but her role has been replaced by her cousin Cassie. So it's like they just wanted to have, like, a token black girl be part of the movie. And since they really couldn't afford to pay Raven to appear in the whole movie, they just hired some other girl to play her cousin. It was stupid. I don't understand why they did that. Protozoa also had a change in actor, and this one was pretty egregious because it looks like he changed ethnicity. In the first 2 movies, I don't know the actor who played Protozoa in the first 2 movies. I really don't know what his ethnicity is, but he looks to me like he's at least mixed. He does not look white, but in the third one, Protozoa has totally changed ethnicity, and he is a white British man now. And that sucked, and honestly, he didn't need to be in this movie at all. It's like he was a pretty major player in the first 2 movies, and they just like, oh, Protozoa is iconic, we have to have him in the third one, but we can't get the same guy back, so we'll just cast this white guy to play him. Like, it's stupid. If they couldn't have gotten the guy to play him again, they should have just not had him in the movie, and really it wouldn't have detracted at all from the plot. Also, like, they keep trying to get us to care about Xenon's love interest, but like, since the first movie, okay, Greg didn't reappear in the second one, and in the second movie it's implied that Xenon and Orion, who's just this minor character, that they're gonna have a thing. Orion's not in the third one, so it's like, why do they keep trying to get us to care about who Xenon has a crush on? Because it's obviously not gonna come to anything. So this movie is about like colonization, I guess, because there's this guy who wanted to like colonize the moon, and this hippie wants to stop him, and Xenon meets the moon spirit who convinces her to stop it. It sounds stupider than it is, but it's still pretty stupid. So basically they're trying to prevent this guy from building on the moon. And there's like this little side plot about Xenon's a little adopted foster cousin Dasha, and that's actually a really sweet little subplot. This one actually has the best plot in my opinion, but it's still poorly paced, as all DCOMs are apparently. So I give the story a 4 out of 5, the acting gets a 2 out of 5, the lesson gets a 1 out of 5, I don't even remember what it was, and the enjoyability gets a 2 out of 5. For whatever reason, it was just boring. But anyway, that's all 3 Xenon movies. I don't know why there were 3 of them, don't watch any of them. Alright, now it's time for the Cheetah Girls, which obviously also features Raven-Symoné. She's the protagonist in this movie, and the Cheetah Girls movies are pretty good. It's an iconic DCOM, but honestly, it's not as good as I remember it being from when I was a kid. Like, Cheetah Girls and Cheetah Girls 2, like, I wanted to buy cheetah satin print pajamas so I could stay up and watch this movie and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was into the Cheetah Girls movies, but like they're really not that good. Like, I mean, they're not bad, but they're not great. Galleria, who is the character who's played by Raven, she's almost unbearable in this movie. Like, she is so arrogant and over the top. The songs in the movie are good for early 2000s, but they're kind of cheesy now. But the message of female empowerment and sisterhood, which are consistent in the songs, are really cool. But the thing is, like, Galleria is the person who's the songwriter for the group, and she's writing all these songs about female empowerment and sisterhood. Meanwhile, she spends the whole movie basically ignoring her friends' desires and, like, just steamrolling them. So it doesn't really make sense for Galleria to be writing those lyrics. The love interests in this movie are like the definition of shoehorn. There's this guy from school who kind of teases Galleria at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end of the movie, I guess he like feels sorry for her or something. I don't know. It's like, it has nothing to do with the movie and shouldn't have been included. The story is just so convenient. So basically the Cheetah Girls get noticed / discovered almost immediately in the movie when they're like at their school talent show audition. And that basically is the catalyst for the whole rest of the movie's plot. I'm not impressed with the story itself. It's like basically Galleria is arrogant and like prideful. And the movie takes place over the course of a week as well, I think. It's like not... Yeah, it's basically a week, so it takes place all leading up to a school talent show, and it's basically about how, like, the music industry and, like, this producer was trying to get them to change and all this kind of stuff, and Galleria being selfish. The positive points of the movie are the diversity. You know, we've got a black girl in Aqua, we've got a mixed girl, which is Galleria, we've got a Hispanic girl, who is Chanel, and then Dorinda is a white girl, but she is in foster care, so we're getting to see a lot of different types of families and family situations, which is really cool. And I wish that they would have spent more time on that, because that kind of was just kind of in the background and really could have been the more interesting part of the movie. And I think that this approach to race relations and socioeconomic issues were really organic and natural. But like I said, I wish it was a little bit more incorporated. Overall, the movie's climax is sort of blah, but because basically Galleria's dog runs away and gets caught in a hole, and then like that makes the other Cheetah Girls come out and support, and then they sing together to soothe the dog, and it's stupid, but I love dogs, and it's a Bashan in the movie, which I have a Bashan in real life, so it makes me emotional when I watch it. Anyway, the story I'm going to give a 4 out of 5. The songs I give a 3 out of 5. The lesson gets a 5 out of 5 because it's one of those classic don't be selfish, think about others kinds of lessons. And the enjoyability I give a 4 out of 5. So, like I said, it's not as good as I remember, but Cheetah Girls is still pretty good. Alright, Cheetah Girls 2. This one, actually, in some ways, I like a little bit better than the first one. In other ways, not. But Chanel's mom is, I guess, hoping to get remarried, and her boyfriend, who has a house in Spain, invites her to come. And so the Cheetah Girls all orchestrate so that they can go to Spain together to compete in this contest together. And this story really only works because Galleria, Chanel, and Aqua's parents are all wealthy and can afford to send them to Barcelona. And Dorinda gets to come along for the ride because basically Galleria's parents bankroll her. So that's kind of convenient, and that's kind of like the whole issue with the Cheetah Girls. Everything is just so convenient. This movie is also more musical like than the first one. Most of the songs in the first movie were actual performances, but in this movie they burst into song constantly. The movie is really beautiful, honestly. The sets and the costumes are really classy and well thought out. Some of the songs are also really nice, like there's this lullaby that they sing at a nightclub, which is odd, but it's beautiful. It's funny because Dorinda meets this, Spanish dancer, and they hit it off really well, but he's a count, and Dorinda gets real insecure in this relationship real fast because she thinks Joaquin is rich and that she won't fit in with his rich friends, but the truth is that Joaquin, the count, even though he's got the status, he's not really rich either, and so they connect at the end, and it's really sweet. Galleria and Chanel have this little conflict in the movie, and it's really stupid because basically Galleria gets jealous because Chanel meets a friend in Barcelona, and Galleria thinks that Chanel's going to replace her with this new Barcelonan friend, and so she also is kind of like, the rest of the Cheetah Girls are all distracted, and they don't care about the group anymore, and so basically Galleria is running away to go back home, like without talking to any of her friends. Like the whole conflict, like the whole like primary conflict of the movie and the climax is just stupid. It's like, just talk about your feelings. Like, she was trying to throughout the rest of the movie, she really didn't try that hard to like let her friends know how she felt. And the thing is, like, there is no tension in this movie at all that lasts for more than, like, a second. So basically, from the time that Galleria decides to leave, which is, like, the big dramatic moment, like, it's, like, the very next scene that they managed to convince her to stay. So it's, like, they didn't let that linger at all. And so, like, there's no tension in the movie. It's just, like, one thing happens after the other, and, like, we don't really care. So basically they get to compete in the contest at the end. We don't find out if they win or not, which is kind of dissatisfying. It's like the one thing that we would actually care about in this movie. They don't even let us know. But the costumes for the final performance were a revelation. Like, Chanel is dressed like a lady matador, and like Galleria's got on this crazy hat and like giant jacket. It's pretty cool. The movie is slow and it drags a bit, and all the problems are instantly solved, so it's boring and not so great. The story gets a 3 out of 5, the acting gets a 5 out of 5, the lesson gets a 1 out of 5, because the lesson's just friendship. The songs I go with 5 out of 5, actually really good, and the enjoyability gets a 3 out of 5. So the last movie in the Cheetah Girls series is Cheetah Girls One World, and this movie should not have been made because they couldn't get Raven-Symoné to be in it for whatever reason, and they mention her in the movie, but she doesn't ever actually appear. And to me that's dumb, because Galleria was the heart and soul of the Cheetah Girls. Like, she was the one who was constantly pushing them to perform and compete, and you know, she was the one who was writing their songs. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense to me for her to be suddenly like devoted to school to the point that she doesn't really care about the Cheetah Girls anymore. And then furthermore, it doesn't make sense for the rest of the Cheetah Girls to continue to pursue the music career without Galleria pushing them. If it weren't for Galleria, I think the other three would give up. But apparently not, because that's basically what this movie is about. The other three girls giving up stuff to pursue one last chance before they all go off to college, which is also funny because like all three of the girls in this movie were like well into their 20s. I think that Adrienne Bailon, who was playing Chanel, was like 25 when this movie was being made, and we're supposed to believe she's like 17 or 18. It's unrealistic. Like, they really do look like they're adult women at this point. Beautiful adult women, but they look grown. So basically, they go to India because they want to be in a Bollywood movie, and like the conflict of the movie is the director wants all three of them to basically play the female lead, but his uncle, who's funding the movie, only can afford one actress. So they're basically competing and auditioning against each other for the part. But basically, Aqua falls in love with this tech support guy over the phone. And I feel like I'm conflicted, because on the one hand, it's a racial stereotype that like all tech support people are Indian. But then on the other hand, a lot of tech support people are Indian. But it's just like, again, so convenient, because the tech support guy that she's been calling over the phone to flirt with lives in the same area of India where they're filming their Bollywood movie, so she gets to meet her little tech support prince and like have a little love story with him. It's cute, but it's stupid. The songs aren't bad in this movie, but they're not really that memorable, and a lot of them are slow. Like, most of the songs in this movie are ballads, which I don't prefer. And they aren't well incorporated into the like plot of the movie. Like, they're basically like random music videos inserted into the movie, which I guess maybe they're taking inspiration from Bollywood movies. Like, the idea for the movie is interesting, and the sets and locations are cool. I think they could have been cooler. Like, they were in India. Like, they could have really taken advantage of that. But they did a pretty good job with the sets. The male leads in this movie are cute, so they're all, like, Indian guys, and it's interesting to see them being, like, the handsome, debonair, like, guys in this movie. The Indian-inspired costumes are pretty good as well. The story gets a 3 out of 5, the songs get a 2 out of 5, the acting gets a 4 out of 5, the lesson gets a 2 out of 5, and the enjoyability gets a 2 out of 5. The lesson, of course, is that friends are better than opportunities, because at the end they all decide they don't want to compete against each other. I would recommend the first 2 Cheetah Girl movies, but not so much the third one. It's not bad, it's just pointless. Okay, now the moment I guess we've all been waiting for. We're going to talk about Descendants, which is what I'm doing the fan art for today. Obviously, this is Mal. I drew this as like a portrait, like maybe a symbolic portrait. Obviously, she has the capability. If you don't know, from watching the movies, it's revealed in the second movie, she can turn into a dragon like her mom, Maleficent. And so I drew her with these symbols above her head to signify that she's got a dragon inside. That's why her eyes glow green, because she's like part villain. Whatever. So the point of Descendants is Beauty and the Beast's son, Ben, is being coronated as the king, and the first thing he wants to do is give the children of the villains a chance at a good life in Auradon, which is the kingdom where all the good fairy tale kids live. And so he's invited 4 villain kids over to enroll in Auradon preps to go to school with them. And he picked Mal, which is Maleficent's daughter, Carlos, the son of Cruella de Vil, Jay, the son of Jafar, and Evie, the daughter of the evil queen. So that's the point of the movie, okay? And these kids are going over to Auradon, and their parents want them to steal the fairy godmother's wand in order that they may take it back to the villains and take over the world with it, whatever. Honestly, the villain parents were the highlight of the movie. The evil queen was more like a petty queen. It's unfortunate because they really don't appear in subsequent movies. They're pretty much just in this first one, and they were the best part. Some of the set design was really nice in this movie. So part of Mal's plan is that she uses a love potion on Ben so that she can get close to him, so that she can steal the fairy godmother's wand at the coronation. And they go on a date together, and the enchanted lake where they're having this date is beautiful. It's a really great set. At that point, Ben's love potion wears off because he goes in the enchanted lake water, which removes all charms. And he, I guess, naturally kind of falls in love with Mal, and she likewise falls in love with him. So it's kind of a love story between the two of them, which is sweet. The world building is decent, but a lot of it is confusing. Like the chronology, I don't understand, because basically the villains' kids and the heroes' kids are the same age, but I would presume that the villains are older than the heroes. For example, the evil queen is Snow White's stepmother, so that would put them a generational line above. So these evil queen's daughter should be the same age as Snow White. Snow White doesn't appear in the movie, so I guess that's fine. But like, it's just stuff like that. Like the hero's kids should be younger than the villain's kids if you're just looking at the ages of the parents. But we gloss over that. But even if we were to ignore that, like all of the classic Disney movies all occur in different time periods. So like, how come Belle and Beast are the same age as, I don't know, Jafar, when those movies take place in 2 totally different time periods in different countries? So you have to set all that stuff aside. So it's a lot of stuff you kind of have to get past in order to enjoy this movie. Furthermore, why are they coronating a kid at age 16 to be the king? That's never explained. Why in this world kids become kings at 16 when their fathers are still a viable ruling age? Like Beast in this movie, or the king, he's not the Beast anymore, he's just a regular dude, but he's just a normal guy, he's the king, and he looks totally capable. It's not like he's losing his mind, he's not going senile, he's like younger than my dad is in real life. And like, I don't know, it's just, to me, it's like, why is he being booted off the throne? He looks capable of it to me. It doesn't make any sense. It's a cute movie though, if you look past all of those things. And it's got good acting. Most of the effects are pretty cheesy, but some are pretty good. I think that the love story that happens between Mal and Ben could have used more development. And to me, honestly, the songs in this movie are not that memorable. Like, when I think back on it, a lot of them are actually pretty good. I think there's one called Did I Mention that Ben sings at like this tourney game. and he's singing basically to Mal about why he loves Mal so much, and that's a pretty good song. And then there's a song that Mal sings on their date, which is pretty good. But those are really the only two songs I can really think of from this movie that I enjoyed, and that I remember in any way. And I think that love story really could have used more development. Also, the other VKs did not get enough screen time, and that's a consistent issue. Carlos and Jay are barely in any of these movies, honestly, and I would have liked to see more of them. The story I give a 4 out of 5. It's got a pretty good, straightforward plot, but like I said, there's so many things you have to look over. The acting gets a 5 out of 5. The songs just get a 2 out of 5. The lesson gets a 5 out of 5, and the enjoyability gets a 4 out of 5. Alright, Descendants 2 also has a pretty straightforward plot. Basically, Mal in the first movie comes around and doesn't want to be evil anymore, but in this movie she's still grappling with the fact that she is a villain's kid. She's villainous at heart. Sometimes she wants to do bad things, and I think being the girlfriend of the king puts a lot of pressure on her to be perfect all the time, which she feels like she can't live up to. And so basically she runs away back to the Isle. And the movie is about Ben going to get her, Ben getting captured, and then the daughter of Ursula, who is named Uma, basically wants to take over Auradon. So she's kind of taking up the mantle that Mal had in the first movie of trying to steal Bippity Boppity Boo, the wand, and take over the world. It's a decent plot, but the pacing is atrocious, honestly. I think that there are better songs in this one than the first one. Uma's opening song is really good. It's like, I think it's called Say My Name or What's My Name, something like that. And then there's a duet between Mal and Evie that's really good. Chillin' Like a Villain is a decent and memorable scene. The scene where they sing that song. I hate that there's a talking dog in this movie because I think that takes Descendants into kiddie movie territory, whereas initially I would class it as a preteen teen family movie. The effects are a little bit better in this movie, but the green screen work is still not great. There's a rap battle scene that's really good, another song. It's between Mal and Uma, but Dove Cameron's rap voice is not very compelling. And this is kind of the point in the movie, like I liked that scene, the rap battle, but that whole scene is way too long and it feels like it should be the climax or the end of the movie, but it's not, and the movie continues to go on after that. And I think because the movie really should have ended there, but they continued it, the rest of the movie felt rushed. So again, major pacing issues. They did an effect where Uma transforms into like a sea witch, like with the tentacles, like Ursula in Little Mermaid, and the effect of that is really good. The water effect is really good. It looks pretty compelling and realistic. The tentacles themselves don't look great, but the way that they interact with the world and with the water is really good. The ending song, the final song on the boat, is pretty good, and the dancing is awesome. So basically, like there's like a cotillion at the end of the movie, and it's taking place, I believe, on like a yacht. And the yacht is like partially flooded from a fight with Ursula's daughter, Uma. And so like the final dance scene, like they're splashing around in the water, and it's really cool. So the story I give a 4 out of 5 because it drags on for way too long and there's just too much at the end. The acting gets a 5 out of 5, the lesson gets a 5 out of 5, and the songs get a 4 out of 5, and the enjoyability gets a 4 out of 5. The lesson of this movie is actually pretty good. That's why I give it a 5 out of 5. It's be yourself. It's not true love if they don't love you for you, and that's a really good message, and I like that. Finally, let's talk about Descendants 3. Now, I'm not a Descendants super fan. I honestly thought I would be going into it because everybody said it was really good. People said it was better than Zombies, which I obviously loved. But in my opinion, Descendants 3 is actually a really good way to end this trilogy, and I was happy with it. However, there's a kind of an inconsistency right off the bat. In the final moments of Descendants 2, Ben said that he would bring Dizzy over. Dizzy being the daughter or the granddaughter of Lady Tremaine, the daughter of Drusilla, one of Cinderella's stepsisters. So he says that he would bring Dizzy over to Auradon and take her off the island, and he agreed that he would bring over all of the villains' kids. But in this movie, at the beginning of Descendants 3, which I think is supposed to take place about a year and a half later, after the end of D2, Dizzy and the other kids have still not been invited over at this point. I guess it's not an inconsistency, but the end of D2, it leads you to believe that those kids are going to come over, and they're all going to come over. But at the beginning of D3, they haven't come over at all, and it's been a year and a half. It seems like it would have happened sooner than that, the way that they leave it at the end of D2. So this movie, Audrey, who is the daughter of Aurora, Sleeping Beauty, whatever, she is jealous of Mal because she always envisioned herself as becoming the queen, and because she dated Ben originally. So she becomes evil because of her extreme jealousy and a sense of entitlement. And she's got this song called Queen of Mean, which is really, really good. Her costume is marginal, so she has like a good girl version where she's wearing pink, and then she's got her evil costume, which was much improved. There's a song that takes place between Hades and Mal, which is really stupid. Hades turns out to be Mal's dad. This is a spoiler. I am sorry if you've not seen Descendants. But yeah, Hades is Mal's dad, and they have a duet, and it's not very good. It's a stupid song. The way that the barrier between the Isle, with all the villains on it, and Aradon works, the way that barrier works is stupid. The way it opens and closes is stupid. Because, like, while the barrier is closing, villains are just slipping out. Like, you would think it's magic. Couldn't the barrier just close instantaneously? Why does it have to, like, slowly reform? That's dumb. I like the songs in this movie. Like I said, I already mentioned the Queen of Mean song that Audrey sings. I also like this song that Evie sings before she kisses her boyfriend Doug. I think Doug is the son of Doc, one of the 7 dwarves. I wasn't paying that close of attention when he mentioned who his dad was in the first movie, but I'm pretty sure that's who his dad is. And she sings this whole song before she kisses him, and that was really a cute point. The plot was really good. I think it was interesting that a child of hero turned out to be the villain in this movie, and it kind of is the whole point of this series, and I think it really fit for Audrey's character, particularly for her to become evil, since she was always kind of a jerk since the first movie. The ending was a satisfying and good conclusion to the trilogy. There's only a few minor complaints. I think the fact that Hades is Mal's dad is kind of random, and a big point of the movie is that Mal needs to get this ember from him, because it's apparently the only thing that is powerful enough to combat the magic that Audrey is using. And that's random because, like, the ember is not something that's inherent to the Hercules movie. That's something that was invented just for this. Also, the way that Audrey executes on her evil in this movie is kind of lackluster. She basically uses Maleficent's scepter, and she doesn't actually fight at all herself really until the very end of the movie. She spends the whole movie like looking into the crystal on the scepter and like manipulating things while she's hiding away, and I just feel like that's kind of lame. The story I give a 4 out of 5, the acting gets a 5 out of 5, the lesson gets a 5 out of 5, and the lesson is that anyone is capable of good or evil. The songs get a 3 out of 5, and enjoyability gets a 4 out of 5, and that is the Descendants trilogy. Quality-wise, the Descendants movies are far and away better than pretty much any other DCOM I've seen. Like I said, in terms of quality, it seems like they really put a lot of care into this. I think they probably had a higher budget. The sets, the costumes, the size of the cast, that's something that, like, they don't talk about much, but if it's a low-budget movie, there's not going to be that many cast members and background characters, but there are a ton of extras in this movie. There's a ton of people just in the background. Like I said, they put a lot of effort and thought into these movies. I just think that they have this really interesting world that they've set up, but they just didn't quite execute on all of the things that I would have expected out of a movie about the children of classic Disney characters. There's just something disappointing about it. They set a really high bar for themselves by using those characters, and I just don't know if they really made it there. Your mileage may vary. If you go in with lower expectations than I did, maybe you would be more impressed. I'll say this, Kenny Ortega directed these movies, and he is the director responsible for most of the iconic Disney Channel original movie series. So High School Musical, I believe, was directed by Kenny Ortega. The Cheetah Girls was directed by Kenny Ortega. So I think that Kenny Ortega is the person they put in charge of, like, projects that they feel like are going to be really popular, but Kenny Ortega does not know how to do pacing well, and that's just all I'm going to say about that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the fan art. Please go watch Descendants and let me know what you think if you haven't seen it already, and if you're a Descendants mega fan, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.